Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to a very informative session with a very special guest of ours, with a guest named Osama Shiraz Shah. Osama is a PhD scholar and he's a sixth-year graduate student in University of Pittsburgh. He has been very kind enough to give us time for this discussion, and today we'll be talking about different aspects of how to get into a PhD program in the US. But before that, a brief background of Osama Shiraz. As I said, that he's a PhD scholar in University of Pittsburgh. Uh, he just told me that he's into some kind of a fellowship program, which we will want to know more about during our discussion. His BS is from Lahore University of Management Sciences and Biology, and he has done an internship in Switzerland. And during our discussion, we'll talk more about that. His research interest is utilizing genomic assays and bioinformatic analysis to investigate understudied subtypes of breast cancer. He has shared a lot of details about his research work, and if he wants, he can go into a lot more details of it. I'm assuming he has shared some of his selected publications, and I'm assuming because he has been a PhD student in one of the reputed institution in the world. So he will also talk about his publications and his research experience. So first of all, welcome, Salma, and thanks a lot for giving us time.
Thanks a lot, Amir. Very glad to be here and happy to share any information that will be useful for aspiring scientists in Pakistan.
Sure. So before we go further, I presented what we got from the link which you shared. But would you like to tell us something about yourself, which may be of interest to in the context of our current discussion?
Yes, absolutely. So, like you said, Amir, I actually came here 5 years back for my PhD. This was 2018 August. I actually graduated last week, so I finished my PhD. I defended my PhD thesis last week. So I'm officially like a
Doctor.
doctor. Yeah,
Yeah, Dr.
doctor
Osama.
of philosophy. Yeah.
That's
So that's a
wonderful.
good
That's a
feeling.
great news, actually. Yeah.
Yes, it's
How
a
does
it's a
it,
great
how
feeling.
does that feel to start with? I mean, like to see that all the uncertainties are behind you, and how are you feeling right now?
Absolutely, it's crazy. Like if you ask anybody, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is it takes for you to do a PhD, it's crazy. There, I think in every challenge in life, but especially in PhD, there are many more lows than highs. So you need to be um, persevere. You have to persevere. You have to be steadfast, and you have to keep the goal in mind. When anybody uh, wants to do a PhD, like my juniors, I always say, hey, it will be a long haul. So don't think about this as a marathon, like which will finish in 1 year or 2 years. It's never going to be like that. When I started my PhD, I always thought it's like a marathon, trying to do more than I could. But I think maybe after I did my comprehensive exam, that's when you present your uh, outline of your thesis, you present your specific aims, you realize that it's not going to like just take 1 year, 2 years, probably will like take 3, 4 years. So that's when you start, I think, becoming more mindful of how you spend your time, how you plan your experiments. So PhD is all about uh, uh, investigating something which is very hard to investigate. It needs more planning um, than actual work, I would say. So right now, after having completed like 5 years, I do feel like your critical thinking, how you want to spend time on doing any task, it evolves a lot. So I think a lot about how I plan for a thing um, before I want to actually do that thing. So that's one thing which I would say right now. And of course, it makes you feel really nice that you have persevered for 5 years and you can see the or feel this status. It's in some ways it's a very reputed status. Now when people meet you, they call you doctor. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's a really good feeling that you have persevered for 5 years or whatever time you spent doing your PhD, and you have come to the other side, a little bit wiser, a little bit smarter in terms of how to deal with complex problems, complex questions. So it's a good feeling, I would say. It definitely
Right.
makes you feel lighter. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I interrupted you and this thing when you said that you When I heard the good news, I couldn't stop myself from from making you talk about it. But because I thought that you will want more to talk about this, because when you graduate from, I have not done a PhD, but I'm assuming that when you there are a lot of uncertainties, and you would want to at this point talk about it when you are done with those uncertainties and like. So that's. But I interrupted you. And what do you want to continue? What you want to tell about more, which will be relevant to our discussion today?
You mean my future plans?
So we'll start from the past.
Okay, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Uh, is it fine if I say in Urdu, like if it makes Urdu English,
Yeah, I think
or
we
do
keep
you want
it.
me to continue?
So our audience is international, so we keep it in English.
All right,
So
sure,
assuming that even
sure.
also we don't want to restrict it to a specific. I mean, primarily our channel's language is English.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
So maybe I can like briefly talk about. I think one of the questions that you had mentioned is how did I get interested in science or research? Um, when I think about my childhood, I think uh, I was lucky to have an environment where I had people who were already in science or at least in medicine. So my parents, they both are doctors. They were the primary inspiration. I mean, since childhood, I've seen them. Um, talking about medical cases. I've been to my parents' hospital like several times. Often when I had to wait after school, like if they had some work, so I often join them. So I've seen how these things operate, like how these things medical related things happen in Pakistan. But the part that I found personally very interesting was the theory behind it. So that's why I'm not like a medicine doctor. I'm a doctor. I have a doctorate in philosophy. So I'm more like a person who likes to think about problems, so theoretical problems. Um, Apart from my parents, of course, the education that you get early on is very crucial for your development of your interests. So um, I was, I think, privileged in many ways that my parents um, prioritized my education in terms of where did we study and so on. So I studied in Beacon House. I think a lot of folks would know in Pakistan what Beacon House is. It's a chain of schools. Uh, I would say like quite elite now. I think based on how much they charge for education, so it's quite big. Uh, Early on, it used to be few branches like where I lived. So it was a privilege. I think many people used to see like, hey, Beacon House is a big place, really good teachers. So I was lucky to have good teachers who I think early on had the way they had groomed us um, had probably shaped my interest in science. Science was the only thing which I think I went to school for, honestly. Apart from like playing football or cricket, like the other thing which I really liked was science. I did not have any interest in English, Urdu, or other subjects that we used to study. But of course, as you mature, like you realize the importance of all these different subjects that are that are part of the curriculum. They have their own beauty, I would say, or their own like. For example, if you take Pakistan studies, uh, there is so much that we can learn from our own country's history, and of course, history of the world. And then there are other subjects which are more like social studies um, that help you understand things apart from science. So over the years, I started, I think, getting more inclined towards science. Science somehow came naturally. I think you have kids you see who are really good with mathematics or really good with languages, right? They learn languages very fast and so on. So I was the kid who just knew science. So I would say like that. And I had a good bunch of friends. All of us were in some ways nerds. We like to talk about science fiction movies or like buy encyclopedias, and then we used to mimic or like basically look at the drawings that were like of dinosaurs or like different animals and try to like draw that. So part of I think growing up was also doing scientific art. So early on, doing scientific art, and then when I was in my high school, um, you start thinking about the future. That's the time when you get introduced to all these. What's your next step? What are you going to do, right? Like intermetric,
Yeah.
A levels, O levels. At that time, even I was in Beacon House, I think there was a lot of inclination towards doing like CIEs, O levels, and A levels. So that's where I chose science. So that was, I think, the first, if you would think like a turning point, because if
Hmm.
you decide the subjects, whatever subjects you decide, those are the subjects that you will like, work on or be specialized in future. So I chose all the science courses like physics, chemistry, biology, and then mathematics. I was not really good at maths, but I knew maths was an important subject. So uh, I was lucky enough to have good teachers again in all these subjects during my high school, during my 2 years of uh, O level, and sorry, 3 years of O level and 2 years of A levels. And then um, because of these mentors or teachers early on, I think whatever you learn stays with you. I remember there's so much knowledge that we learned, especially in biology. That's the subject that I started to become more interested during my OA levels. I still remember we had these CIE books. Each year, there's one different book, and then um, like vast knowledge, vast amounts of knowledge. I think those are the things that I really liked learning a lot. Um, and then in A level, things were different. It was shorter than, of course, O level, but then you have like much denser literature to learn. Um, so what I realized during those 2 years of A levels is that uh, you can retain knowledge. So that was an interesting part because early on, like as a kid, I think we are not. At least I was not that person who used to retain a lot of knowledge. It was more like you learn something, you might forget later on. But I think during A levels, I realized that you can retain a lot of knowledge. Um, and then during A levels, I also one of the other things which I think which shaped my future directions or future like path was the counseling that I got. So being in a school like Beacon House, I think you have like access to counselors. So I used to be very in a way like very myself very keen to go and ask them questions. Hey, what are the universities that I should apply to, and so on and so on. So I started planning early on that I need to do undergrad, and I wanted to do undergrad. I don't know, for some reason outside of Karachi. I wanted to see like what else is there. There are really good universities, of course, in Karachi as well. For
So
myself,
wait,
I
you when you're talking about the schooling, so your initial schooling was in Karachi, right?
yes,
That was
I'm
in Karachi. Okay.
originally from Karachi, so
Yeah.
my
Okay.
parents they both are from there.
Okay.
Actually, they're from originally from two different villages, one in Tata and one in
Okay.
Kolkata. Sorry, Kota Almo, sorry.
Okay.
So then they came to Karachi, and then we were like me and my siblings. We all were born in Karachi, so we have been raised in Karachi, me and all my siblings. And then for my undergrad, I chose Lums. Uh, I think it just happened uh, that I got in.
So
Um,
just wait here.
yeah,
Because I want to understand it, and because many of this, many of the parents who would be watching it, you may also this may also be helpful for them to plan their kids' future, including my own kids. Uh, I mean, traditionally, what happens is that if your parents are doctors and you want to go to biological sciences and you're in Karachi, and I'm assuming that you would have a reasonable financial status as well. So the go-to institution is Khan University, or like then you would want to go to any government university. So why you? And
yes,
I'm sure that there was not an intellectual reason for that. You just that was a choice. So why you chose? Because there are so many private medical colleges in Karachi as well, and you went to Lums and did BS in biology as opposed to doing MBBS in any of the medical colleges in anywhere in Pakistan. So why you made that decision?
yes, absolutely. That's a great question. Actually, my parents wanted me to be a doctor as well from
Okay,
early on. Like, and I
as
had
expected.
yeah, as expected. So I already had like in my mind, I was open. I was open to not open to I guess being a doctor, but open to the idea of applying.
Okay.
The only thing which I'm about medicine, which I was not sure about, I'm still like I think I'm if I go back, I will still choose the same. I'm not really good with um, if you think about Pakistan, I'm not really good with being I think a surgeon, like let's say a surgeon or
Okay.
I can be a journal physician, maybe like
Okay.
if
You
I
don't
if I
want to
go
see
back.
blood, right? You don't want
Yeah,
to be cutting
yeah. So
bones,
I
and you
think,
don't want to be cutting
yeah,
blood.
so that's the part which I was not very sure about. Maybe I did
Okay.
not have heart about it, because it's a big responsibility as well. If you're a doctor, you have a big responsibility. And the way I was, I think I would not have been a yeah, I would not have been a really good doctor, and especially like a surgeon or something. But now
Okay.
I know that there's so many different types of doctors. Even in medicine, you can be like a general physician, right? You can be a geneticist in US, like a clinical geneticist. You don't need to work um, or like do surgeries, right? You can just work with blood samples. That's what all we do. Like in my lab, you can work with tissue samples. It's fine, but you don't have that. I would say, life of a person, like on stake, or like if something goes wrong, it's you would feel at the end of the day it might be um, you know a mistake from you. I'm sure like the people who do medicine, like my parents, uh, they told me like stories of something when something's went wrong, or like um, you would see a person who's healthy uh, coming into a hospital, right, with a disease, and they succumb to the disease and then die. So you cannot do anything. There are some things which are, I think, part of the plan of the God, and no matter how much we try, uh, you may not be able to like change the faith in some cases. So um, the reason why I chose lumps, so the stories are quite interesting. Like I was preparing for my MCAT, the entrance exams for the medical colleges in Karachi. At the same time, I was also preparing for GRE and all these, SATs, and all the entrance exams. So I was also preparing for MCAT. But I applied my lumps admission before the MCATs. I remember that, so it was early on. And interestingly, I got like the response very fast. So after talking to some counselors and some career counselors in our school, and some other friends or folks whose friends were there, or like um, people who have gone to Lumps, I had heard really good things. First, I did not know that Lumps had early on, like when Lumps was introduced to me, because the name itself does not say anything about life sciences, right? This management sciences. Even in the US, when I share with somebody that, hey, I'm from Lumps, and if I spell it out, like what Lumps means, people don't understand that
You're
there's
doing a
a
biological sciences from a
yes,
management, or or a
absolutely.
business institution, right?
Yes, absolutely. So now I introduce like my university by the name of the school, Said Babarali School of Sciences, and then it's part of Lumps. So that's a better way, like for people to understand that yes, there is a school of sciences at Lumps and engineering at Lumps, and that was one of the things that I think motivated me, hearing from other people's experiences. And then I also saw what was the options up after I do my MBBS or after I do my bachelor's, and I realized that a bachelor's track was the one that could lead you to become a scientist. I still had a very limited understanding what a scientist was. I did not know a lot about what a PhD did, what a researcher did. I just knew that I would get to answer or work on interesting scientific questions. That's all I knew, honestly. I knew that based on what you see in news or media, that scientists are working on cure of cancer, or they're working on making new sources of energy and so on. And so these were the things that I was more interested in. So I think, like I said early on, my interest was more theoretical than more m- practicing medicine. So that was one of the reasons why I chose Lums. My dad was not happy about it, in terms of like, because he was really keen on me applying to all these other places. He was himself from SMC, Sindh Medical College, so it's a really reputed medical college. My mom was also from there, SMC, but they wanted me to also, just like in the as a family legacy, go there and then decide whatever. Because there now I know that there are a lot of other options. If you choose MBBS, you can also do USMLE and then come to US and then do research if you want to, or whatever. But at that time, I think there was limited understanding of what the outcome of all these would be. And what was clear to me was that bachelor's would be more theoretical. Um, and after that, I can do research or be a scientist. So that's why I chose Lumps as a place I would like to like spend my next
So,
4 years.
So, how is your experience in Lums in terms of your training? And I mean, would you want to, what are the memories from there, especially those things? If students from Lums and BS in biology are saying this, or maybe from NUST or institutions uh, uh, of any biological sciences, including medical students, that if they want to go into a PhD program as like yours. So, what were the things that made your career trajectory and your application process helpful for a PhD program in the US?
Yes, absolutely. So I think Lums, the four, actually 5 years, I spent one more year after I completed my graduation. I spent one more year doing research. But overall, these 5 years, I think, were the most memorable years of my life so far. I think many people say that college years or like your undergraduate years are the most, um, in every way, like most, um, you have the most experience, I would say. And that's early on. You're also like, more open about things you're learning, so you're more open about things. So I think Lumps as a whole gave me a really good experience that definitely without Lumps I may not have um, thought about PhD. I may not have experienced research the way I did at Lumps. So maybe I can briefly start from like each year. So of course, moving out of your city, for many folks is or living far away from family is not easy. So first year, I think it was more about, our first 6 months was more about um, getting assimilated in the place, getting comfortable in the place. The best part of Lumps is like a bubble. So that's the best way I can explain Lumps. It's like a walled place in some ways because you're protected from everything outside. Um, there are so many numerous issues that we face daily in Pakistan, like basic issues like bijli chali gayi, there's no light, right? Or water shortage or gas shortage. Some of these things that may have seen in Karachi in my own city, but when I was at Lumps, I think none of these things were there. The way Lumps has made the environment, like I said, is like a bubble. It's a protected bubble for the students, so they don't worry about anything else. Uh, you get all these basic necessities fulfilled, and all you can, I think, all you're expected is to just focus on learning um, and growing as an individual. So I think that was the best part about Lumps. Um, and the first year was a very interesting year. Um, all so far, like till now, all the academic years I've seen, that was the worst academic year in my life. I had performed very bad, like in terms of studies. I still remember I was having second thoughts. My dad was saying, "Hey, you can still apply to Aga Khan and like come back to Karachi. Like, you can just switch to medicine." But there was something like a person, like I said, I was very much interested in theoretical learning. So I stayed there for after the first year. What I did was I actually started looking for research. So the good thing about Lumps is that despite it being small and our department being much more small, so Department of Biology, it was very small. At the time when I came in, our batch of 2017 had just like 9 students, 9 biology majors. Um, and it was like very small compared to other like domains like engineering. Engineering was the largest. Computer science was very like large number of people. Chemistry, physics, mathematics, and biology were very small in terms of number of people who were doing undergrad. But luckily, we had some seniors who had learned early on from that you can do research. So my first summer, I did research. Actually, not did research. Sorry, I did. I took a workshop on Java. That was my first ever computational like experience. First ever. I had known about computer languages before, but I've never like formally taken a workshop. I used to do basic, you know, um, we like basic, very basic like Excel and all that stuff, like most of us before. But I think Java was the first of proper language I got experience into. And then the second summer, so after second year, things started getting better because once you get used to a place, you learn how to, live as a hostelite. So living in the dorms, um, getting the, I guess, getting in the rhythm of day-to-day classes and everything, you start doing better in academically as well. Most of my friends were computer science people, so I think that was one of the motivations I took that Java workshop. And luckily, when I was looking for summer internships in my own or summer research projects in my own university, the professor I came to or I went to, and I ended up working for him for 4 next years was Dr. Safiullah Chaudhry. He's right now the dean of Department of Biology. He's a really like a great mentor. I mean, I owe a lot of guidance to my mentors and especially to him. So if something I can like maybe point out to future researchers or like people who are interested in PhD or so on, sometimes you have to follow a person, a mentor who knows stuff. So you need to trust them. What I saw during the 4 years of my undergrad, actually, there were a lot of other folks, friends, colleagues who often had second thoughts. Hey, maybe this is not right for me. Till even fourth year, they had second thoughts. Hey, maybe this is not right for me. If you have these thoughts again and again, first, if you think that this is not right for you, maybe you can see if there are other better options. But sometimes you have to put trust and rely, and like also in the mentors that you have around you. So I think that's what I did. I did not have second thoughts about uh, what I was doing. That was one thing which I was very clear about. Hey, this is what I plan to do, and I will finish it. So I think that is something you also bring to when you go into a PhD school. That's what you bring with yourself. This kind of perseverance or steadfastness that hey, I'm starting this, I'll finish this, and I'll see what happens in the end. And I can say this with a surety, at least based on my own experience, that what you finish would always be fruitful. One way or the other way, it will come back to you, whatever you do. So that's one thing which I think I learned early on. Um, and with Dr. Safiullah, I worked for him or with him. Initially, I was learning basic language like MATLAB. It's not, people say sometimes it's not even a language, but that was my first um, experience, like, or second experience after Java into like programming. I worked with him on something called Boolean modeling. It's a mathematical concept which is used to mimic or model actually biological systems. And I also got introduced to cancer. So the first kind of cancer like I worked on was pancreatic cancer and then colorectal cancer. So we used to make Boolean models for modeling different pathways or different signaling networks within these disease that result in like disease progression and so on. So it was a very fascinating experience because before I did not know like what research meant and especially what computational research meant. I had seen my seniors and my colleagues because we used to have labs in Lums. A great thing, of course, with your undergrad teaching is anywhere, you get to experience practical things practically as well. So we used to have chemistry labs and then biology labs. In biology labs, you were able to like work on cell lines, do PCR reactions and so on, so on. So you learn the core biological methodologies that you use like throughout your 5 years of PhD or so on. But computational stuff like was very alien to me. I never had thought I will go into computational biology, but I think it was all credit to my mentor, who the way he taught me. If I think about a mentor, um, that's how I think about. So if I think about a perfect mentor, like a great mentor, I think about my professor. Even still date right now, I think the professor um, that I've seen so far, he stands out because the person who sits with you and teaches you everything line by line is I think if anybody finds that mentor, you should stick with them. So he was that kind of person. He would sit with you. He would go through each line of code one by one. Uh, I remember that early on, like when I couldn't code properly. I think like anybody who starts learning new things, you cannot do it really well. So that was a really good experience getting one-on-one mentorship. And then when I also wrote my first paper in my undergrad, again, scientific writing is a really important thing. People only realize that till or when they come into PhD and after 3 years, let's say, when you have to write your first draft of like your paper, then you realize, hey, scientific writing is so important. But I was lucky to have these experiences early on. And again, like I said, thanks to my mentor. So if a student already knows somebody who's a really good um, mentor, a professor in your lab or in some other institute who you have heard a lot of testimonies about, or like heard from your colleagues or friends, you should reach out to them. In Pakistan, I think people are, at least in Lums, I've seen professors are very open. They would take you into your lab even if you're coming from outside. You can do a summer internship or summer research project. In my lab, we had a lot of folks from UAT, so engineering folks who were interested in biology, and they came to our lab to do biological research, computational biology research. In fact, most of the people during my time in Dr. Safila Chaudhry's lab were from UAT. That was really interesting because I was working with engineers, uh, mostly with engineers and computer scientists. Then I was probably the only biologist, I think, early on. Then we had more students, of course. Like I said, our batch was small, but the next batches were big. The junior batch which we got was quite big. So we had a lot of folks coming in, and um, luckily, or I think in some ways, at one point you have to be a mentor as yourself as well. So I was then at one point during my undergrad mentor as well. So I think my undergrad was very well rounded in terms of like all the experiences I got. Not only I got experience to wet lab research, I also got experience to computational research. That's the track I chose because I think I became interested in it. I saw the possibilities of how you can um, use computational methodologies to understand biological questions easier. One of the reasons also for that was because in Pakistan, wet lab research is very hard to do. You need a lot of resources. So you can imagine a basic cell line media, like in US, like we use this all the time in our lab because they have funding here, very good funding. That media costs like $400 or $450 just for cell lines. And in Pakistan, if you are ordering that, it's super costly. So often what people do is they make their own media. And even in US, in some labs which don't have a lot of funding, they make their own media. So you can imagine like basic things like cell line media is so expensive. How would you be able to do research which requires, I don't know, in the US, thousands and thousands of dollars? So maybe early on I saw that, and because I used to hear stories from my seniors, hey, my project is stuck because I'm waiting for the reagents to arrive, and so on and so on. So I was like, hey, I'm so lucky that I have my research that I can do on my laptop.
Right.
So you don't
So,
need much.
yeah. So what I'm hearing is that when you're an undergraduate student, there are three things which I can summarize from your discussion. If you're aiming for PhD, one is that you need to start research early on so that you can get into the research methods and scientific writing, and you get yourself an early exposure. Then the mentor is very important. And the third thing which you mentioned is that some hands-on skill in terms of some computational languages, that maybe Java, as you talked about, or you talked about MATLAB, but currently I would add to that other Python programming languages like Python or R. So, what would you agree with that summary, or do you want to add something to that summary? What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. The points that you raised. One thing which I think, like I said early on, I think people need to put trust in mentors. Um, I think the time we are in, I've seen this in my own sister because she's young. They have a lot of doubts. Every human being has doubts, but I think the younger you are, you have more doubts. So if you have doubts, you have to put trust in somebody who knows. So following the steps of somebody who knows is a really good, I think, recipe for success in whatever area you want to go into. And like you said, I think early on experience on languages like R, Python is much more important right now. 4 or 5 years back, actually now 9 years back, when I was doing when I was introduced to languages, I think from the computer science perspective, the other languages are really like important. But from the data science perspective or computational biology or bioinformatics perspective, I think R is really good. Python is really good. That's the languages that you should learn. And most of these learnings you can do online. So even if you don't have a mentor for, let's say, a specific methodology, competition methodology, you can just sign up yourself on edX or Coursera and learn these things yourself. I think when I came to US, actually, I learned R for the first time myself. We did not have any course here, like at least in the first few months when I really needed to learn R. So I just learned it myself. But because of my prior experience, it was easier.
So, which languages have you been using? We're a bit sidetracking from the discussion, but just to, we'll come back to that. But which languages were most useful for you in your research work
Yes, Samir.
during your
Yeah,
PhD program?
I mean mostly R. So I think all
Right.
of my
Okay.
or predominantly like my research that I've done is using R, little bit
Okay.
of Python, um, because some things some packages or some kind of like analysis may not be available on R. Actually, R is for data science. R is the go-to language. So most of the things you'll find in there. Few things you may find in Python, and then of course you have Linux Bash. So Linux Bash is again a very crucial language. Um, Having the understanding of how to run uh, or how to use command line to run basic pre-processing pipelines, because often in computational biology or specifically like let's say genomics, you get large data sets that you cannot pre-process or just analyze on your own laptop. So you need to work on high performance clusters, and they are, at least here in my university, they are they require you to have like basic understanding of Linux or Bash to like operate these.
Right. So, anything else would you want to talk about your bachelor experience before we move further?
Yes, just want to highlight that part, and maybe highlight that even if you're not having a great experience, let's say like you have doubts, but if you follow one track, it will be fruitful. For me, that fruit came when I applied for my the summer undergraduate research internships. This was in my third year, 2016 summer. Uh, out of 200 applicants, only 11 were selected. So that's a very small pool. You can imagine, like, um, and I was one of them. I did not have really high GPA. I still remember I had like a 3.3, and some people won't think that's a really good GPA. But what I think one of the reasons I got probably selected for this experience was my statement of purpose. We can talk more about it later on, but statement of purpose or how you write about yourself is a really important aspect of getting anywhere for even for summer internships, for your PhD programs. So somehow I was able to convey my scientific curiosity in that, and that experience ultimately was a really first it looks nice on your CV if you think about, hey, you want to do a PhD, of course, having these kind of um activities or these kind of experiences in your CV helps a lot for your PhD. It shows that you cannot only do research in your own country, but you are uh, perhaps having enough skills or have enough motivation to do research outside your country. That experience was really, really fruitful. That was my first true wet lab experience. So, like I said, I was mostly doing competition stuff. That was my first true wet lab experience. I worked on something called Drosophila, fruit fly.
So,
A very,
Where was that internship?
it was in the University of Lausanne in
Okay.
Switzerland. So it
Okay.
was in UNIL, the University of Lausanne, and it was in fruit fly, again cancer, but using Drosophila or fruit fly as a model to study cancer. So that was a really beautiful experience. I mean, I cannot put it in words because if you think about an undergrad student who has had limited wet lab experience and you go into a high tech lab, like well funded, and you do some cutting edge research, like it's really, really, really enriching.
And it
So
gives
that
you a lot of confidence to your
absolutely,
career, right? Because that's what is
absolutely.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah, the faith was sealed. I think when I came back, I already told my professor, hey, I want to like do my PhD. After this, I want to do a PhD or master's. I just want to like do more research outside. So fourth year was very straightforward in terms of I knew what my goal was, finishing my senior research project, and then after graduating, I spent one more year because one other thing which might come on later, but maybe I can highlight right now is publishing your work. So publishing in a peer-reviewed journal early on is really helpful. It shows that not only can you do research, you can write a paper and you can write in a way that is scientifically acceptable. It's publishable. So adds a lot of weight on your CV. It shows that you're a really good candidate for your future PhD or master studies, research-based master studies. Yeah.
Right. So after you did your bachelor's, you did your intern, your this research experience out of Pakistan as well. So did you do any job before going to PhD, or you just so how the I mean, was there any gap between your bachelor and the PhD?
Yeah, 1 year. So I stayed in my own lab, like with Dr. Safila. I did a research assistantship for 1 year, less than 1 year, and then I spent like after I submitted my paper, I went right back home, like, and I just focused on my applications. So
Hmm.
this was fall, like October, November, December, because these are the times when you have to prepare for your applications. I had to give my GRE, my TOEFL, um, and then I applied for uh, my PhD. And I think I only applied for one master's program because by that time I already so one master programs are really hard to get fully funded. So I'm sure Amir you can talk more about it, but it's hard to get fully funded masters outside. So my goal was to a PhD because I did not have enough resources to and like many other Pakistani students to like study outside and live outside. It's not that uh, cheap, right, compared to Pakistan. So PhD was the very logical track for me. And given my goal was not to do masters, just like study, my goal was to do research. So that was naturally the best route for me. The only place I applied for masters was actually the place I did summer undergrad research because I was really like I had a really good experience. I was really keen on going back there and working in the same lab if I could.
Right. So, I mean, we're going to go next into the process of PhD application, but before that, your your answer triggered a few questions in my mind. So you did bachelor, and then you went to the PhD program. Was that master leading to PhD program, or what was the or like the question is that if you are a bachelor, like a person like yourself, a BS in biological sciences, or anybody else who has even an MBBS. So how, if you want to go directly into a PhD program as opposed to a master program and then into a PhD program, does that make you maybe you have to be more competitive, or I mean, how does that dynamic work?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. So when I came to US, actually, I have a couple of colleagues, really good like friends, colleagues, who actually did masters and then came to US for PhD. It works differently uh, depending on like how your um, what choices you made and how your research experience was. Often people are not thinking about research early on. Like if you think about other universities, I know Lums does it because we have really good like um, what you would call like generational knowledge in some ways.
Mhm.
Because the previous generation of bachelor's students, we saw them, they did really good. They went to fully funded uh, research positions or like PhDs. Actually, in my department, when we enter, like this is something which always sticks with me is that, and I still remember uh, when when we enter like Lumps Department of Biology, the first thing you'll see is there's a wall of fame. I call it wall of fame, and you see pictures of all the previous undergrad students who went to fully funded places. So it's just a
Motivation.
testimony. Yeah,
It's
it's just
kind
a
of a motivation or something, as a
absolutely.
reminder or motivation
Yes,
or a
it's a
certain
tribute to
message.
those people as well.
Yeah.
And it's a testimony that yes, people coming from Pakistan uh, could be are really like brilliant people, all of the students, and then they can get into places which the first time a Pakistani student has gone to. So I think that was one of the things that always motivated me. Hey, yes, I can do it. After my undergrad, I can go for a PhD. But there are folks even at Lums who I was working with, brilliant students, brilliant people who decided to do masters for whatever reasons. Maybe they wanted to stay in Pakistan for longer. They wanted to do more research, wanted to shape their CV or their experience a bit more, and then they went to do fully funded PhD programs. The drawback with that is that, of course, in US, the masters from Pakistan is not accepted, or from other places is not accepted. So in almost all the PhD programs, you will have to do 2 years of masters. It's not actually 2 years of masters in some ways. It's just part of the PhD. But
Mm.
if you think about the 2 years of masters programs, the curriculum that you get is equivalent to the first 2 years of PhD. So my 2 years of PhD, first 2 years were just courses,
Okay.
research as well, but courses. So just 2 years of courses, the same criteria that you do in a for your master's program. But coming back to the question of like, do you need to do a master's early on to get into a fully funded PhD uh, program? Not necessarily, but often people have to, because if they don't have a lot of research experience, they may want to get it before they come for research. Because if you by chance even get it, let's say if you have a really interesting CV, and let's say you get into a PhD program, that itself may not be determinant of your success unless you yourself are motivated to do PhD. I had some friends who came for PhD, but again, they decided that they want to do a master's and then do a job. So it's their way of it's their choice. But if you really want to do a PhD, then you really want to work early on doing research. If you do research during undergrad, definitely it will make your profile very strong, and you can directly apply for PhD. If not, then do a master's and then apply. Even if you're doing a PhD, let's say in Pakistan, I have had really great mentors in Lums who were doing PhD when I was doing my undergrad, and now they're here doing a postdoc. So it's never like you can't get
Mm.
an opportunity to do research outside. You can always go after PhD as well. Even after doing a postdoc in Pakistan as well, you can do another postdoc outside. So
Right.
various
So
routes.
yeah, so what you said is really interesting. For example, if a first year medical student or second year medical student or a BSc student or any other biological sciences student is listening to this, and what I hear from you, that you are focused, you're clear right from the beginning, and then uh, that is something which is critical. That if you're focused, you're clear that okay, this is a track which I'm taking, and then if you focus on research work, get some publications on you on, get some experience early on, and then you, rather than going to a master's and then doing PhD, you save yourself a lot of
Absolutely.
energy and
Early
time and
grooming is
just
really
go into.
important.
Yeah, yeah, but you have to have a very strong research background to plan it. But I mean, like being a medical student myself, not right now, but I mean, had I knew it, rather than doing many other things, I would have focused on this thing. The reason being because in medical, as a medical student, you still have a lot of life. I mean, you still have a lot of time, and if medical students are hearing to this is very important for you. If you want to go into this track, then you have to focus on doing research early on. uh, Anything you want to add to this before we move to the next point?
No, I think you covered all the points in the summary.
Okay, so right,
Sorry.
and now okay, so the next point is that how your application process was. You have turned off your camera. Is that intentional or okay?
Sorry. Yeah,
That's
just
okay.
turning on
Yeah,
the AC.
yeah, that's okay. So the next thing is that coming to the actual application process. So that I mean, we have to divide it. I mean, some for somebody who has gone through the process, I think that's quite a process, right? I mean, first of all, I think you have to have a lot of clarity, because there are potential competing options at every step, whether you are doing a PhD inside Pakistan or outside Pakistan. Let's start from here. Were you having a clarity right from the beginning that you are not going to pursue a PhD inside Pakistan, and you're going to go? That's what I'm getting. But was that the case?
Yeah. So I already had experience. I think in my own ways. Like I think I had already experienced uh, that how much research I can do in Pakistan. There is a bottleneck. So like I said, resources are a big bottleneck for research. Research always requires a lot of money. Um, of course, the importance of this is very, very high. If there's investment in research, like if we can see in outside countries, it pays off in many ways. How do you plan for unknown like diseases, right? Like COVID. How do
Yeah.
you build the infrastructure for future AI research and so on? So a lot of these things, like early on when I was looking at the research that I was doing and what I had learned during this time how research was being done outside from experiences from my colleagues who were
Mm.
outside. I had already decided, hey, that I want to do research outside. And I think my undergrad summer internship played a big role because that was my first formal international research experience in a country which, of course, has, or in a university which had a lot of funds. So I had already decided, hey, no, I have to get out and experience how things are outside.
Right. So then, when you decide that you have to do it outside Pakistan, and then still there are a lot of competing options. For example, whether you want to go to US, because and though US is top of the line in terms of the quality of the research that you do, or the quality of the degree which you get, but in the short term, I mean, the application process seems a bit a lot of bottlenecks which will keep people straight from it in terms of like preparing for GRE, and then like going through all the process. So
Yeah.
I mean, one of my mentor, who was one of my senior, he told me that whenever you are applying for something like that overseas, so like start from US and then from Canada and then stuff like that. So how did that mental thought process went in your mind at that time?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, like I said before, like we had seniors in my department that had gone into different universities. Just looking at the places that they went to, it was clear like US was the most common place people went to, and there are good reasons for that. Of course, in US, a lot of these programs are fully funded PhD programs, and it's much easier, I would say, in some ways, um, to get into them. I can give one example of, or maybe a few examples of other folks who went to other places. Um, I had some, I had a really good friend who did his master's, almost a fully funded master's from UBC, University of British Columbia. So it's not like there are not opportunities where you get funding, um, but may it not be very common. Um, and then people also think about US as a land of opportunities. Hey, after 5 years of PhD or 2 years of masters, you get to like stay here for some time, do a industry or whatever, like academic experience, like a postdoc or whatever. So I think in long term, this is a better decision. At least that's what
Hmm.
I saw. Uh, that if you come to US, spend 5 years, then um, you can spend more time in professional development, do some industry stints or like academic stints if you have to go back to Pakistan afterwards, because that will help a lot in be making you a polished individual that can really contribute if you want to go back and do something. Let's say even if you want to be a professor back in Pakistan or want to do your own startup or whatever, right? Uh, Europe, I think I don't have a lot of understanding of Europe in terms of um, PhD experience, application because I personally did not apply for PhD in Europe. I did apply for a master's. There are fully funded programs in masters, but again, they're very competitive. So I applied to the same university I went for summer undergrad internship, but I did not get because it was super competitive. I got into the masters, but I did not succeed to get 100% scholarship. I think they gave me like half of it. So uh, despite that, it's super costly to live in Europe. There are really good options. I've heard people go to Germany. I have some friends who, instead of like doing a PhD, went to Germany for a master's. Um, there are a lot of perks there. But if I just talk about US, the things that I needed during my application process were actually not that crazy, and things have become much more easier. Of course, there were requirements like GRE. Now, a lot of universities don't even require GRE. TOEFL is very easy to pass. Many of people in Pakistan, many people like know enough English. I can easily say that in countries apart from Pakistan, Pakistan is an interesting country because a lot of folks speak English. There are countries which predominantly speak their own mother tongue, like China,
Yeah.
like many European countries. They actually have much harder time. Like people from China have much harder time learning English, speaking English. So if you want to like have a benchmark, like I would say Pakistani students know really good English. It's just that sometimes they think that we may not pass this, so the confidence may not be there. But uh, TOEFL is very easy to do. So after doing GRE and TOEFL, the next thing which I did was I had already started like shortlisting a list of universities, again predominantly US. just one in
Okay,
Europe.
just 1 minute. So, when you did your GRE, did you take any in training programs, which is, I mean, some online subscriptions or some training
Yeah,
program? Like, we're not going to go into a lot of details about GRE because
absolutely.
that's a topic in its own. But I mean, if you can just give us briefly, like, whether did you did it on your own or you subscribed to some of the training programs?
Absolutely. I actually did it on my own, but I did use a lot of resources that were available. Uh, a lot of resources that were shared with. So my seniors, that I learned from them what resources they use. So I mostly followed their track, but then of course made changes because of the time you have. So depending on how much time you have, there's a lot to cover, and you have to see which areas you are lacking in. So what I started with was just a diagnostic test. I saw which areas I'm not really good at, and then just primarily focus on that. Clearly, mathematics is the area where you can easily improve. A lot of us, a lot of the components of the English are very hard to improve on. Like it takes time. Like
Hmm.
not in short term, you can improve on mathematics. So my goal was to maximize my score in mathematics, and then work on learning more vocabulary. That was one of the components. I'm not sure how GRE is right now. That was one of the components. You need to learn like a lot of English words, memorize them. So I used to use flashcards, and then there's something called Magoosh. It's
Yeah,
a GRE training like set of
online
resources for GRE,
subscription.
yeah,
Yeah.
subscription. So just using their flashcards, watching their YouTube videos, that helped a lot. But now GRE is not required in many places, in many places. So you don't even need to worry about that. And there's one more bottleneck that people often faced. Uh, that somehow I was very lucky because so that bottleneck is finances to support your application.
Hmm.
One application, if you imagine like on average, like one application may cost from somewhere from $50 to $150 just for the application. And then if you send GRE and TOEFL scores officially, I think that also costs like $10 to $20 each. So sending scores, official scores from ETS to each of the 20 universities would have been like a lot of, yeah, a lot of like uh, financial expense. So what I did was I avoided that by emailing each program that I applied to and requesting for fee waivers. So for application, and also requested, hey, can I just send an unofficial report for the
Okay.
preliminary admission process? And then once you accept me, or once there's anywhere in between the process, if you need official reports, just tell me. I can send it to you. And
That's really smart, and I haven't
that,
heard about that. I think I'm
and it,
hearing it this way for the
yeah,
first time, actually.
I
Yeah.
mean, people don't know that. I don't even remember how I thought about it, but might have been my mentors who
Hmm.
said, hey, it's fine, just email them, see what happens. One thing which we don't know is like a lot of these programs really have a lot of funding for like supporting uh, student applications from, let's say, underrepresented regions, or like even in US, underrepresented regions within US and outside as well. So they would waive your fee. That saves you a lot of money. So I applied to almost like 20 universities, and I only paid for two of them. One was the European university, because in Europe, I think they still are strict in terms of the application fee and everything. They're very uh, um, like to the point, and like
Yeah.
by the book. They're like by the book. Hey, we need this, and then we'll look at your application. I remember when I applied for one of the European places, I was doing a wire transfer because they had a very weird way of like sending the money. They don't like use these easy ways.
Cards
So
and stuff
anyway,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So I had to like wire some money, and then there was a hidden fee. I did not realize that. I
Hmm.
was short of like €5. They said, "Hey, you need to send this to us, and we won't process your application." So somehow I had to like send €5 by spending, I don't know, €10 more. So that was crazy. And then some parts of US, at the universities of California, like various universities of California, they don't waive the fee, and they're very strict about their fees, like $120 to $150. So I had to pay for some of them, but rest were almost all free. Out of these 20, I got into four, and then out of these four, I selected University of Pittsburgh for various reasons, because the research that I wanted to do, the program that I wanted to be in, was here at University of Pittsburgh. Uh, there are some others, but of course, I mean, the ones that I got into, this was the best option for me. If you want to like think about what are the best programs for students, like at least from my background. So, like I said, I'm a computational biologist as trained, like I've been trained as a computational biologist with focus on cancer biology in my undergrad. So my goal was to be in a program where I can do cancer research and get interdisciplinary training. I wanted to do wet lab and computational biology. So I wanted to go in a place where both of these things are, you know, you're trained in both of these things. So my main programs that I applied to were interdisciplinary umbrella programs. And interestingly, a lot of these lie under the School of Medicine. So School of Medicine is the go-to place to apply to. Like just go to any university or find any professor that you're interested in and see which program they are part of. And if they're in the School of Medicine, just apply to the School of Medicine programs and apply to integrative or interdisciplinary or umbrella programs where they give you option of choosing a track later on, or where they have a diversity of professors where you're not bound by, let's say there are some programs where you can where it's the Department of Neuroscience and you can only do neuroscience. So for us, I don't have a department. I'm in the umbrella program at the University of Pittsburgh. It's called Integrative Systems Biology. It's a very broad program. We have biologists, we have biophysicists, we have hardcore vet biologists. So it's so diverse. The reason for this diversity is because the professors in this program are also very diverse. So go to a place where you have diversity of folks, like researchers, students, so that you can easily choose what you are interested in, and you can also get interaction or familiarity with other areas if you're not sure, like, hey, where I want to go. So
Right.
that's my recommendation.
Right. So here's, if you take a step back, so you did your GRE and then obviously TOEFL, so that makes you an eligibility. And if you're applying for some of the programs, assuming that you're focused, the applicant is focused on where they want to apply, they would study the eligibility and do with these things. Then after that, like, would you like to talk about the other ingredients of your application, especially the essays, which I'm assuming that they play a very critical role in bringing your bringing your application in the competition.
Yes, absolutely. So the statement of purpose and then the statement of research. I think every university has a slightly different name, but broadly, like, they are a personal statement and the research statement, or statement of purpose and then statement of research. Like the name says, they are focused on one on you and one on your research. So you need to show, like, hey, these are the aspects of my personality. This is the kind of person I am. This is how I've been groomed, and how do I face adversity and challenges, and how do I have the ability to overcome these challenges? I think almost all of these want to see, because PhD is about tackling challenges, right? It's about doing research where you may
Mm.
fail. You're working on a very small niche, right? And working on a very specific thing has its own, like, drawbacks, but has its own, like, of course, like, it's
And
important,
there are a
right?
lot of uncertainties, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so many uncertainties, like, and once you do a PhD, you'll realize that, hey, it was not an easy thing, but now after doing your PhD, you know that you have the ability to solve problems. But importantly, when you are applying for PhD, you need to show some aspect of how good you are at problem solving, how good you are at critical thinking. So that's what they want to see primarily in your personal statement in some ways. And then research statement should be, how can you elaborate on your research? When you do some research, were you a critical thinker? So this part focuses more on, like, how you started research, what motivated you, what did you learn, what were the skills you learned, and what are the exciting parts. Like, for example, maybe I can briefly start with this research statement. When I was writing my research statement, it's not easy to write. So first thing is, it's never easy to write about yourself or about your research early on. Some people have that skill. I did not have that skill. But the one thing which I was told to do was just write anything, write, finish it. If you materialize something, then you can improve it. So once I made it tangible, made it like, I wrote it down, it was material, like on paper, I could see which parts I can improve, right? So my overall objective was to highlight my undergrad journey. Of course, that's the only experience I had for research. And then importantly, there's also some other parts which you can add both in personal statement or research statement. How did you get interested in research? That was one of the first questions, Amir, you asked me. How did you get interested in, like, science or research, right? So people often have, like, unique experiences during their childhood, right? They have some models, they have some people they look up to, maybe their family members, maybe other idols that they have heard about, Um, Unfortunately, in Pakistan, we don't have like if you think about in the broad sense, we don't have inspirational figures which are scientists, or we used to have some Abdul Salam and really great people who I only learned about after I
Unfortunate,
did my PhD.
very unfortunate.
Unfortunately, very unfortunately, but we still have really good people in our own family. My family, like I said, my parents. So I talked about them. I mentioned that, hey, my parents were my primary inspiration. This is the kind of childhood I had, and this is how I came into science. And then what were the challenges I faced? I talked about them. You could have academic challenges, you can have personal challenges, but never ever mention something which is negative. And then you go in a trajectory of like saying, hey, I'm a I did this and I failed miserably in this. Talk about something which you overcame. Everybody has challenges, and maybe
Hmm.
many of us may have failed in something, but talk about something that you have overcome. So I think maybe end things in a positive light. Nobody wants to read something which is very stark, very dark. So your application should be a testament to your personality or your research, right? It should show that, hey, I'm an individual who can overcome challenges for the sake of science, let's say, or for the sake of getting here. And then in research part, you can highlight all the, like, summarize your research, what you did, how you ended up doing this, um, and who were your mentors. I think early on you cannot say, hey, I've learned everything. If you don't have that um, aspect of personality that you are willing to learn, then I think it will hurt your application a lot. So you shouldn't just put that in words, but you should also materialize that inside yourself, that, hey, even after doing all these things, we would still not know a lot of things. So I think that's the basic philosophy of a researcher or a scientist, that we don't know anything. So that's one thing which my mentor told me, and I always keep that in mind when I'm writing. I don't know anything, but this is what I've learned, and this is the next steps I will do to learn more. So that's the research part, and then personal, like I said, adversities, challenges, how you overcame that. Um, of course, coming from outside of US, they often see or want to take students that are actually from limited areas of limited resources, limited privilege, and then how, despite these challenges, you were able to research, were able to get education, and so on. So these were the aspects of, like, I think a lot of us can write about and relate to, and this adds a lot of value to your personal
Right.
statement and research
Yeah,
statement.
I would like to add one thing, and I would want your feedback on that as well. So when I was applying for my Fulbright application, so one of my senior gave me I think, an advice which I think it was very good, and he was a Fulbright scholar himself as well. He said that, okay, whenever you are making your essays, especially personal statement, do not claim something that I'm confident, I'm punctual, I'm this, rather than cite with an actual example of the work that you're doing. For example, if I claim that I know scientific methodology, or I have done mental health research, then cite an actual work to make it more authentic, because that is something which will, okay, everybody will claim that, okay, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, but if you add something, and your CV, your personal statement, your research statement, that makes a whole coherent story, and that makes it more appealing. What's your take on that point?
Yeah, absolutely agree. We cannot claim at that. I think even if you do a PhD, I mean, in some things you can claim which you're expert in, but early on, I think what we learn during undergrad, it's all theoretical. We cannot claim to have like discovered something, or I mean, some people may have, but I think a lot of folks, like at least I did not have any of these things. If you have, that's great. Like if you can legitimately write about something that you have done, that's really good. If you have done some projects that were, I know some folks who were working on these energy cells, so they did really good research, and they said, hey, I worked on this. But still, a lot of this research would be collaborative research. You won't be doing
Hmm.
something independently. So it's better to write in a humble way, which shows that you have the ability to work with others and you're not an arrogant person, and you can also, you have or you have the capacity to learn from others. So like you said, maybe talk about some recent publications that you were really inspired by, right? When I was doing my, or I was writing my research statement, I cited the work of some folks that I was really inspired by, and I said, hey, these are the folks that also work in this university, some of these work in this university, And that's why I want to come here and work with these guys, because I see their work. It's an inspiration for me. I want to learn more. This is what I've done, but I want to learn more. Like,
Yeah.
so not being arrogant, I think is a really good point that you
Right.
raised. Yeah.
I think that adds that makes a lot of sense. So moving a bit further in terms of the process. So here the GRE, then the TOEFL, and then your essays, and then application fee and all of the process and that verification, etc., etc. So what do you want to add about, like you said that the program in which you were working, and that's a fellowship program, and you do not have to do teaching assistantship and stuff like that. So would you want to give more details about that aspect as well?
Yes. Yes. So I think every program is very unique. The way they get funding. Uh, my program, when I came in, was slightly smaller. Like, it was still a new program, so they had some funding from the School of Medicine themselves. So they have some initial funding to support incoming students, uh, and that's what helped me, or like help all of us to not get stuck into this TA shape. Not stuck, but I would say, because it's a lot of burden. If you think about, like, new students coming in, they're settling in, they're doing research, and then they're doing uh, uh, taking all the courses, and on top of that, you're teaching as well. So our program was designed in a way to make things easy for the students in terms of they don't have these obligations of doing a TA ship. So we got our initial funding for 2 years from the School of Medicine themselves, and afterwards it's all up to your professor. Uh, and then professors have their independent funds that are from the government or from the Department of Defense, and so on, or other institutes. So depending on the funding nature and depending on the nature of your program, you may or may not need to do a TA-ship. Some fundings are like that. They require the students to do a R-ship or TA-ship in order to fulfill the requirements of funding. So in my program, we do not have that. Um, but it's a very common thing across US. A lot of programs will require you to do at least one TA-ship. It's good for you in a way that you get to learn teaching. You get to learn how to be a professor or maybe a mentor. So that's a really beneficial thing. And on top of that, you can split. You can say, I will do one semester of TA-ship and another semester of RA-ship, and then just do my courses. For us, we already were doing research in my program. So for us, it was slightly different, because in some ways we were doing RA-ship. It was not officially RA-ship. We were just doing research on as a just as like a PhD research, but we had courses, so we couldn't do a lot. So I think our program was very supportive in that way, that they did not put additional burden, and it was not required by the funding. And we were able to do like our research on site and then just take the courses.
Okay, one question I think we missed in between was that during the application process, so there are two things which I hear, because I myself have not applied for a PhD program. So some people say that, okay, contact the professor or the supervisor beforehand, and others say that, okay, no, that's not a good idea. I mean, the other way is to, like, apply through the program directly and get without getting in touch with the relevant professor. So which route do you think, and which route do you recommend?
Okay, that's a good question. So I think I've seen both examples.
Yeah.
I've seen uh, folks who were uh, while they were doing undergrad research, they had collaborative research with outside universities in US. So they already knew some professors. And if you're doing a research with a in a collaboration with a professor, let's say in US, you could always email them, hey, I've done research with you. Would you be willing to write a recommendation letter for me or something like that? Depends how much interaction they have had with you. If it's an interaction that is, um, like you have met them like over the time of the research multiple times, and they know your personality or like your work ethics, they would be willing to vouch for you, like, or give a recommendation letter. Uh, One other thing which I have had some friends who actually reached out to professors directly in US and said, hey, I want to do research with you. I want to learn more about your research. Mostly computational folks again, like you cannot do wet lab research, right? Unless you are there in person. So, and a lot of these professors actually had openings, or at least voluntary openings. They said, hey, it's fine. I have this interesting project. I don't have any student working on it. If you're willing, you can work on this. And then what happens is that when you apply for the program, uh, again, every program is very different, how the application process work. In some programs, the professor, I believe, can put in a vote for you. Hey, I have worked with this student. If you receive his application, please, like I would like to, recruit the student. Depends on the program to program. I think every program is very different. The structure of recruitment is very different. But if you contact somebody who is part of the recruitment committee, that I think would probably make your life easier. But never, I think at least I wouldn't be very straightforward. I wouldn't say, hey, I'm emailing for this purpose of like getting admission to university. I would be more like interested in the research. I think that's the thing that they're looking for as well. So instead of being like straightforward in this manner, it's better to work with them, see how it goes on, because people are very straightforward here in US in many ways. They won't sugarcoat it if things are not working. I think they would say, hey, this is not working. So you also don't want to be in a situation where you leave everything. Let's say you come to a new country and then you realize, hey, this is not a good fit for me. And if that was your way of getting in, through, and this has happened in past. Like I've heard stories, again, very few, but there are folks who came in a preferential manner, like somebody vouched for them, but then they realize, hey, this is not a good fit for me. So you don't want to put yourself in a circumstance where you'll be, bound or obliged. And instead, it's better to do it in a way which is, I think, the better way, which is learn to research if you can. Like if you email, I'm sure like there's so many professors. I had a friend who did MBBS, and she was from India. And then this is not just one person's story. This is like a lot of people do like this, because you would know, Amir, like for MBBS, people need to do research as well, like in US. So what she did was she wanted to do MD, like she wanted to clear steps. What she did was she came here by first by doing research, remote research, like computational research with a doctor at a Mayo Clinic, in the Mayo Clinic Institute. And she did research for them or with them for 1 year. Then she came here for her step one, and that's when she got more interaction with the professor. And this is how she built her research part of the CV, right? As MBBS, you need that future in the future. So anybody can do that. And if you already have skills, let's say you're a computer scientist, you're really good at computer science, but you don't know biological research, you can email like folks who are part of the computational biology programs. Hey, I have a lot of experience in computational stuff, but I don't know a lot of biological, I don't have biological expertise. Do you have any projects which I can learn from or work on with you? Again, these will be, a lot of folks will be open, and there will be voluntary programs, and you can easily learn a lot from. And they will be willing to write a commission letters for you in many cases, I would believe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we have had a lot of discussion about the process and stuff like that. A bit briefly, would you want to talk about the reference letters? Because that's an important. I think most of the programs require 3 reference letters. So what would you want to talk about that aspect of the application?
Yes. So for myself, in my undergrad, I mean, I think I always had this in mind. I naturally, the kind of person I am, I was at good terms with all my professors. I was very keen to learn, and the more keen you are to learn, and the more interactive you are with them, I think they will be
Osama, I'm
really
sorry to interrupt you, but I think the voice is a bit breaking. Would you want to maybe try turn off your camera and then try? Perhaps that will improve it.
sure. Sure. Is it still breaking, or let me try this? Reduce. How about now?
You can talk and then we
Better?
can see.
Okay. If it breaks a lot, I can remove my headphones and then I can try that.
Uh, I think I would want you to maybe remove your headphone and try it because it's breaking a lot.
Okay.
It was
Okay. Let me,
fine initially and then it
yeah.
started breaking.
Let me close my camera and then mic and then
Yeah,
see
yeah,
if it
sure.
works. Amir, how about now? I also changed some settings. Does it help?
Yeah, it's better. It's much better now.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Let me put this on standard definition. I also reduce the resolution, but
Okay.
I can turn that back on. Okay. So, yeah, the reference letters. So like I said, I think I was always keen, because as a scientist, I think you need to develop this. skill or set or like a aspect of personality that you should be able to talk with other folks, be interactive. That's going to be fruitful throughout your PhD, and it's better to build that before. Um, as a PhD student or like as a PhD candidate, I think you're expected to be coherent, need to like think before you speak, and need to learn to think on your feet as well. So if somebody approaches you, asks you about some aspect of your research, you need to take a break, like think about it, and then talk about it. If you let's say can't, right, or if you don't know enough, you can say I don't know enough. It's fine, but don't make it up. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because these are the parts of or aspects of a researcher or PhD student who or which will help you a lot during your time in PhD. So like I was saying, being very interactive is a very fruitful thing. Going to people and not just talking about or gossiping about things, maybe being very critical about your discussion is a really important part as well of early steps that you can take. So during your undergrad, just go talk to professors, learn more about their research. If you are interested in doing research, ask about their experiences. So that's what I did. I mean, I was lucky again to be at Lums. Lums is a very elite place. Uh, the research that is being done at Lums, I'm sure like it's being done in a limited places in Pakistan. So again, if you are not even at a place where let's say you don't have a lot of research infrastructure, you can always work with somebody who has, right? Like I said, we had folks coming from UAT. All the folks who worked in my lab, they got letters of recommendation from my professor and from the other collaborating professors in my university. So if not at your place, you can always work with somebody else. And then if you are trying to work with some person outside US, again, if you do research with them for at least 1 year and you have done good research, you have been interactive, you have been introspective, they would be willing to write a good letter of recommendation for you. So it's not a hard thing to get, but you just need to be persistent, right? You need to be, hey, I have to find something. I'll work on it for 1 year, 2 years, whatever time. And you cannot say, I worked for with you 6 months. Hey, can you write me a recommendation letter? And if they did not have a good experience with you, right? If you did not show the qualities of scientists, they won't. I should say the people like the people I have had as mentors, they were true like scientists. They were very straightforward. Hey, they would say, I will only write if I can write.
Yeah.
I've heard, I have had teachers who uh, unofficially told me, hey, like this guy I did not have a good experience with, but I still have to write a recommendation letter, and they will write to the point. Hey, these are the things that he is good at, but these are things he's not good at. So maybe he needs more
Mm.
time for me. I think there are people who are very straightforward. I don't think everybody does that, but there would be folks because scientists often become very straightforward. So you have to be you have to be careful. Like, don't
Mm.
uh, you know ask somebody who also does not know a lot about you, and you're just pushing them to give you a recommendation letter. They might not give you a good one. They might not. So better ways, like I said, be interactive, talk with them, work with them, do really good research, show them that you're interested, right?
Mm.
If you work with them, I think a lot of places, if you work with them for even like 1 year and do sufficient research, you'll get a really good recommendation letter. If not in your own university, then outside. If not outside, then like within Pakistan, outside university, then go to go email somebody who you think is a really good researcher and may have openings. Ask from friends who are in the US. They may be able to connect you with somebody who can get you in touch with a new professor who needs voluntary research people, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I think we quite comprehensively discussed a lot of the steps of the PhD application process. Something which you want to talk before we end this discussion that you think is important in the process that we may not have discussed.
Yes, yes. One thing which is very unfortunate, I think, which came during our discussion early on, is that we don't have good role models. A lot of uh, I think the lot of success maybe I had in just getting where I wanted to be was because of my mentors. So if you can find a really good mentor, I think you're a really lucky person. You're really blessed to have a good mentor. And if you find somebody and you cannot value them, that's very unfortunate. Uh, it's very hard to find good mentors. So wherever, like whichever place you are, if you see somebody who's really honest to their work, You should give them your most respect. I think during my time of my growing up as a child, we saw that teachers were really well like respected, professors, so much respect for professors, right? But I think newer generations like that because they sometimes learn something from I don't know, Instagram or TikTok, and then they think that, hey, we know everything. So uh, kids, and especially young kids who are learning, or maybe young adults who are learning or want to be somewhere, you should not be arrogant and maybe learn from your colleagues, your seniors. And respect is a very important thing. In science, I think respect is something that takes you a long way. If you can respect your mentors, they will take care of you. They will, in science, word of mouth is still a big thing. People think, hey, I can do this and that, but if you don't have support from your colleagues, from your mentors, you won't be able to go a long way without their support. In especially in the US, like if you plan to be a professor, uh, you need so much support from all the people you worked with during 5 years or 2 years of postdoc. So always be in good terms with your mentors, your colleagues. Don't be arrogant. Even if you know a lot, you can always find a better way to teach somebody. Uh, you don't need to show off to be valued. If you respect your mentors, if you respect your colleagues and your seniors, I'm sure you'll always end up in a better place than you were before. And science is all about, I think my professor used to say this, standing on the shoulders of giants. So all of us are carrying a legacy in some way. And that legacy, in my case, was from my undergrad. My mentors, all of those people came from really, really, really good institutes. Uh, Germany, US, South Korea, like really good people, really well polished in every aspect of science. I cannot believe, I think I still feel like as a PhD student right now, I lack a lot of things which I see in them. Uh, they are really well polished people. If you think about critical thinking, if you think about how you write something, if you think about how you mentor somebody, uh, really polished people, and they had really good opportunities outside. But one of the reasons why they came back, at least my professor, and this was, I think, one of the inspirations for me uh, as as an undergraduate, the reason for them was to serve their own country. If you think about Pakistan and many other countries which are still developing, there's a lot of brain drain, right? There's a lot of brain drain, and Amir, you can speak for it as well. A lot of talented people in Pakistan often go out. I mean, myself included. But then what they think is that because of the opportunities available outside, it's really good opportunities, of course. They forget about their own country. So if you ever get a chance, I think it's always a good thing to serve back in whatever capacity you can. Even if you want to live here, that's fine. I have seen professors during my time at undergrad who used to be outside, like uh, 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 in different universities, but would take one semester off and come serve in Pakistan. Because if we don't have this chain of legacy, or like this legacy coming down, like we lose all the knowledge that we have gained, uh, and it won't be disseminated in Pakistan. That's where we need it the most. I think there's a lot of misguidance, a lot of confusion uh, in the youth because they don't understand what are the principles or ideals that we should follow on. And I think as a scientist, you in some ways you have to be a principled human being. If you're not a principled human being, I think you won't go very far in science or generally in life, right? So principles are a very strong thing, and if you get opportunity to teach somebody, that's a privilege itself. And if somebody's getting taught or being mentored, I think it's a big privilege or blessing for them. So coming back to this point of we don't have idols. I think in Pakistan, unfortunately, the idols are uh, very superficial, focus on very superficial things. Uh, if anybody wants to see or learn more about the legacy of Pakistan, or maybe one aspect of legacy or one example of legacy, they should or think about or like learn about Abdul Salam. He's a really great scientist. There's actually a really good documentary. I think I watched this during my third year of my PhD. I did not know a lot about him, but if you want to like learn more, Pakistani people are really smart people. There's a lot of low level efforts being done in Pakistan where you can clearly say, wow, this is amazing. But those are not broadcasted as much as other things in Pakistan, right? Um, that's very unfortunate because in US or in other Western countries, there's a lot of emphasis on sharing research, a lot of emphasis on talking about medicine and how important the science is, which is lacking, unfortunately, in Pakistan. Um, and now it's all about AI, right? So in Pakistan, there should be more efforts, of course. And any student, any professor, anybody who's experienced or has expertise, they should somehow share this and help next generation of scientists or researchers or like individuals who are experienced, be groomed. So grooming is really important, and having models and idols is really important. So uh, I was very saddened when I learned about Abdul Salam and his story. It's a tragic story, um, which is also very inspirational. So if somebody wants to have like some idols, we should always look back in our own history, or even if in the history of like let's say our Islamic culture. If there are numerous examples. At one point, there were so many philosophers and researchers in our own scientific, in our own Islamic culture or Islamic history, um, and then there was a different track taken. A lot of this knowledge has been, now um, I would say not in Pakistan, because a lot of the smart people go out, and then what happens is there's a brain drain, and then no mentorship, no guidance, and then we have next generation of people who are confused, right? Who don't have answers to the key things that are not that hard to find, right? I think admissions and PhD into PhD programs and these things should be made so easy that every single person in Pakistan who does have a bachelor's should be able to like apply for further studies and go to, I don't know, outside of Pakistan to even China. I think there are a lot of like opportunities in China, Europe, uh, US. So they should have better access to these things. Yeah. So I
So
think
I
just
think,
highlighted,
yeah,
yeah, just wanted to highlight
yeah.
the part on the idols. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you said in the last part, I think we can keep talking about that uh, for the next 1 hour, and still that will not be finished. But I absolutely agree with that point. That unfortunately we have not been able to give a lot of. Uh, I mean, to be very upfront, our government have not been able to make an environment where people from outside will they get go train outside and come back. I mean, that's something which if somebody from the government's um, is listening to this, then this is a very. I mean, you cannot expect people to do charity. That's as simple as
Absolutely.
that, right? Yeah, you have to
Absolutely.
create environment for them, and you have to create environment for the people who are trained outside uh, to be at least as good as they have to work in any other country. Then they will come back. I
Absolutely.
mean, things like that, like hubul watni and like working for your country, that sound very good in theory, but I mean, practical world is a whole different ball
Absolutely.
game. With that said, Osama, I think I mean, I am lost for words. It was a very useful session, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will find a lot of guidance from this. And I'm assuming that there will be many people who will find a lot of clarity in the application process. And finally, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they do so?
Yes, I can. You can share my email with them. Like it's oss10 at pitt.edu. You can just shoot me an email. I'm very happy to help anybody uh, who has questions about applications. Um, I think the season is coming very soon, so people should probably shortlist some universities, and then think about what are the requirements. Often they don't take GRE, which is a really plus, because people often spend, like when I was doing it, I spent like 3 months preparing for it. So that's part is gone for most of the part of the application, and then just apply. And if you're not planning to apply, or if you don't think like you have enough research experience, so like I said, there's so many places, so many opportunities in Pakistan. Again, reach out to professors at Lums if you want, like, or maybe other places. There are folks who are working on a specific kind of research. I think even in Aga Khan there are folks who are working on medical research. So I'm sure like they would be willing to at least like train some students if they on the voluntary basis or maybe as a research associate. And then for folks who are interested in computational research, and even if they're not, they should learn about computational research. the way the world has become right now, it's very has become very full of opportunities in a lot of ways. But a lot of the opportunities can be done just by having your laptop. So if you have a laptop, and then you can code and you can do some computational research, that's a big plus for your future career. You can stay in Pakistan. You don't need to go out. You can work with any individual who has a opening. So a lot of places like Mayo Clinic, if you're doing medical research, a lot of different researchers in different departments at the University of Pittsburgh or other places. If you find somebody, send them an email. Tell them how much their research fascinates you, and how much valuable it will be for you to learn something. And if they can, give you a voluntary position, or if they can give you some project, and do give them something back. Like, what I mean is, often if we get an opportunity, we'll just think it's too much to handle, and then we will not do much. So try to uh, put in work, and then show them, yes, you are deserving of all this time and effort that they're putting in, and then I'm sure you'll end up in the best places you can. Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Osama, for your time for this channel, and for all of those who are watching. If you've not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel so that you can keep on getting such content. And with that, we'll call it a day. By thanking our guest once again, and we hope that if we call you the next time for another topic, you will come again to our channel.
absolutely. Thanks a lot, Amir. Like, this is a really important topic, so thanks a lot for having or making a talk on this. And then again, it's my honor to be here, and to share like the thoughts I had. And again, in future, I would be happy to talk more about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.